Calling People versus Imirowicz, case number 22-281-519 FC.
Jason DeSantis, the People, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Frederick on behalf of Ms. Imirowicz, who's standing to my left.
Thank you.
Trooper Hunter Smith.
Thank you.
Megan Imirowicz.
Thank you. Bring in the jury, please. Be seated. I hope you had a nice lunch. Mr. DeSantis, sir, it's your next witness, please.
Thank you, Judge. We're going to call Dr. Kanu Virani, who's already present.
Thank you. Mr. Virani, sir, can you please raise your right hand? You'll be given the oath.
Under penalty of perjury, you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this court is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you, sir. You may be seated.
Thank you.
Can you state your full name for the record?
Yes, I will. My first name is Kanu, K-A-N-U, and last name is Virani, V-I-R-A-N-I.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. DeSantis.
Thank you. Dr. Virani, you are now currently retired, is that right?
Yes.
Where did you spend your career?
I worked as a medical examiner for Oakland County starting from 1991, and I retired in April 1st, 2022.
All right. And so you served there for 31 years approximately?
Yes.
Okay. And what kind of training and education do you have?
Well, I did finish medical school in India before I came in United States, and that was completed in 1979. 1 year of internship I completed in India as well, and in 1981 I came in United States. Did 4 years of residency training at Northeastern Ohio University in Akron and Canton area. I did 1 year of special training, we call it fellowship, at NYU and New York City Medical Examiner's Office in forensic pathology. And I worked as a forensic pathologist or medical examiner for New York City for about 2 years, and in 1991 moved to Oakland County.
Can you tell us what kind of certifications you have?
Pardon me?
Sorry. Can you tell us what kind of certifications you have?
Oh, certification. I am board certified in forensic pathology, anatomical and clinical pathology. Those are the part of the pathology we practice in hospital-based areas.
And how many autopsies do you think you've performed in your career?
Well over 20,000 altogether.
And have you been certified as an expert by a court?
Yes.
How many times do you think that's been?
Again, well over 1,000 times.
Judge, I'd move to admit the Dr. Virani as an expert in forensic pathology.
And I have no objection, Your Honor.
Okay. The court is going to qualify you as an expert, sir, in forensic pathology. Go ahead, Mr. DeSantis.
Thank you, Judge. Can you tell the jury what the duties are of a medical examiner?
Medical examiner is, like I said, are the specialized forensic pathologists who do the autopsies and toxicology in the county where they are appointed to determine the cause and manner of death. And those causes of those people who die either suspiciously, violently, or otherwise unexplained, and did not have enough doctor's care at the time of death, so we end up getting those cases and we do autopsy and figure out why the person died.
You use the terms cause and manner of death. Can you tell us what cause of death means?
Cause of death is either a natural disease or any event which is ending somebody's life. And a manner of death is how this cause of death came about. If it came about by natural disease process, we call them a natural manner. If it comes about unnatural way, like somebody fell from the roof or somebody got in an auto collision, we call those accidents. And if somebody purposefully takes somebody else's life and person end up dying, we call them homicide. If somebody does everything by himself or herself to end the life, we call them suicide.
What does mechanism of death mean?
Mechanism of death is a final event or physiological event, how and why the death came about. So somebody might have a disease process since long time, but what was the final event which ended the final few moments of the life and why person died?
Were you working as a medical examiner on March 7th, 2022?
Yes,
Okay. Did you perform the autopsy on a Konrad Imirowicz?
yes I did.
Do you recall that autopsy?
Yes I do.
Okay. Can you tell us about the process of performing an autopsy?
The normal process is to examine the entire body. If person is wearing any clothes, of course we remove the clothes and then examine front to back, head to toe, and if we find any unusual finding on the outside, we have the photographic evidence taken. And then it is followed by the opening the body, like chest and abdominal area, so that we can examine the heart, lungs, and all abdominal organs for any abnormalities or injuries. That is followed by opening the head to look at the inside of the cranium and the brain, again for disease process or injury. And finally the neck area to see again any disease process or natural event that might create the issue with the circulation or breathing.
Now, what was the process you followed on Mr. Imirowicz's autopsy?
Exactly the same process I just described.
Okay. Was there any departure from normal in that process in this case?
No, there was none. Other than that, his limbs or lower legs were amputated before he died, so I could not examine his legs and feet. So that was the only unusual thing.
When you perform an autopsy, do you consult many medical records that might be available?
A person was in a hospital or previously was in a hospital which is related to the cause of death, we find, yes, we usually get the hospital record as much as we can.
Did you do that in this case?
Yes.
What records did you review?
We mostly received the pile of record from the Genesis in a Grand Blanc, which is the hospital where he was taken after he sustained the injury.
And what did you find when you were performing your autopsy on Mr. Imirowicz?
From outside, he had several healing ulcers, means the top of the skin, some of the superficial, some of the deep, were present on the head, the forehead, the chest, the left side of the shoulder, the upper arm, the abdominal area, entire back, and some spotted ulcer on the thighs. They were like some injury we sustain and it doesn't want to heal and continue growing again, and then the crust formation, and then you take it out and again it start bleeding and keep on going. So he had those, we call them chronic ulcers.
So as of March 7, 2022, some of the injuries he sustained still had not fully healed. Is that what we should understand?
Yes.
Okay. Did you discover anything else in the autopsy of note?
In his inside examination, when I was doing his separate organs, yes, his heart, he was 64 when he died. So his heart was enlarged. The wall of the thickness on both right and left side of the heart were thicker than normal. His inside heart chambers were slightly dilated, indicating that he had some chronic heart disease like hypertension, which many a time usually causes this kind of changes if it is not treated very well and going on. Along with it, I also found his kidneys were also having the effect of the long-standing high blood pressure. So they, instead of nice, smooth, shiny surface, they were having a pitting surface, which is a common finding in a long-standing high blood pressure disease process.
Were you aware that he'd been placed on dialysis while at the hospital?
Yes, when I look at the chart, I was made aware that he was on dialysis because his kidneys were not functioning properly.
Do you know why they weren't functioning properly?
That I could not figure it out, whether they put dialysis before he sustained this injury or after he did that. Very likely after this sustaining injury, because he was having a congestive heart failure on and on. He was on medication to treat those ulcers and heart condition, and sometimes that happens, the kidneys don't function properly. I mean, they did not stop completely functioning, but they were not functioning properly. So according to the hospital doctor's best judgment, put him on a dialysis so that his other unusual chemicals don't start building up in the body.
Can you explain congestive heart failure in this case?
Heart failure is where the heart cannot pump blood properly, either because of the inherent process problem with the heart itself, or because of the high blood pressure like a lot of us have in our older age. So the pumping of the blood against the increased pressure makes the heart strain more, struggle more, and that's why the chamber get dilated, the muscle get thicker, and still cannot function properly. Then it start failing, means the proper pumping of the blood circulation is not going all over the body. We call it congestive heart failure.
Did that happen in this case?
Yes.
Do you know why?
Again, because of this non-healing ulcer since October, he sustained and he died in March, so longer than 5 months. He was in and out of the hospital or in the hospital continuously being treated for this kind of ulcers and chemical burns. So this could be the mostly part of it, on top of his chronic hypertensive heart disease and kidney problem.
Did you determine the mechanism of his death?
In his case, mechanism is complications of this chemical burns, means the congestive heart failure, on and off infection in the lung. They were treating him all the time, and the chronic kidney failure, the combination of those complications from the heart, lungs, and kidney combined ended his life.
Okay. So that's what complications means.
Yes.
So would these complications have occurred but for the burns upon him?
Without those chemical burns, he should not have those complications, of course, and how long he would have lived, I cannot tell you, but he would not have died without the chemical burns and complications.
Okay. Did you determine the cause of death?
His cause of death was chemical burns with complications.
Okay. And did you determine the manner of death?
I classified as a homicide.
And what did you base that upon?
Based on the information I was provided that somebody threw the lye and the water on him while he was lying down, almost face down on the left side, because the burn pattern is on the back and on the left side, so sorry, on the right side and face down. So that created the starting situation, and that was done by somebody on purpose to hurt him, and that's why classification is homicide.
So I want to ask you about that. You said the lye and the water. Was there anything what made you think it was lye and water?
Well, part of it is the information provided to me. Of course, 5 months later, I cannot do any test on his body to identify that. But again, the non-healing nature of the ulcer tells me that some chemical was there which was preventing those ulcers not to heal properly. So that's the second medical information from me, and the other information came from investigation.
And you said in particular the burn pattern indicated that he was lying face down and on his side?
Face down mostly, maybe slightly on his right side, because the right side shoulder was not having any burns.
Okay. And when you're preparing an autopsy, do you have to memorialize this autopsy in some way?
Yeah, I do.
Is that part of your job?
Yes.
Do you do that every single time?
Yes.
When do you do that in relation to perform the autopsy?
Well, while doing the autopsy, and just after the autopsy, writing those notes, and then doing the dictation and preparing the report immediately following the autopsy on the same day.
Judge, may I approach the witness?
Yes, sir.
Showing the witness what I previously marked as People's Proposed Exhibit number 3.
Yes, this is the copy of the 8-page autopsy report and toxicology on Konrad Imirowicz.
Thank you. And you said in the toxicology report, what is that?
It is a routine process for medical examiner to take the blood and other fluid for analysis. many a time we find the cause of death from the results of this analysis. Some people die of alcohol intoxication, some people die of drug intoxication combination. So every case when the fluid and blood is available, we always save it and send it to the lab. And they analyze it, they send us the report, we call it toxicology report.
Doctor, is this report fairly and accurately depicts your findings and your process here?
Yes.
Judge, I'd move to admit People's Proposed Exhibit 3.
Mr. Miller?
No objection.
So admitted.
If I can just publish a little bit to the jury, Judge.
Yes. Jury seat number 1. Thank you.
Doctor, can you see the screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. What are we looking at here on the screen?
Well, on the left side is the first page of the autopsy report, and on the right side is the last page of the autopsy.
Okay. And what information is contained on the left side, the autopsy protocol?
His name, his case number, his age, his gender, his date of death, where he was pronounced and time of death, his date of autopsy, where I did the autopsy, and what date and time I did the autopsy, as well as the cause of death and manner of death.
And on the other page is the final line of your opinion. Can you read that for us?
Yeah, that is final, the last page of the autopsy report. I call it opinion, means my explanation why I determine the cause of death as it is. And that it reads that this 64-year-old white male, Konrad Imirowicz, died of chemical burns with complications. He sustained these burns when caustic chemical was thrown on him. He survived longer than 5 months with medical treatment for these burns. There were no other physical injuries. The manner of death is homicide, and then my name and signature on it.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Virani, you indicated looking at the toxicology report can sometimes tell you the cause of death and perhaps alcohol intoxication. In this case, we talked about this before at a previous hearing, correct, that this person was someone who drank?
Well, because he survived that long, more than 5 months after injury, we could not run the alcohol 5-month-old, of course. And he was on hospice care lately before he died. So we did not find any alcohol in his system at the time of death.
But that doesn't mean there wasn't alcohol in his system at the time he was injured. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I don't have anything else, Judge.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
Thank you. So, Doctor, you can't say, well, let's put it this way. You testified earlier. Did the liver show any alcohol damage?
No, sir.
All right. And given the time since the incident and the date of death, I believe you testified that the liver can really regenerate and heal itself, correct?
Yes, actually it does. And a lot of people like to hear that if somebody drinks and then doesn't drink for next 5, 6, 7 days, the effect of the alcoholic process on the liver completely heals. So within a week, the liver is back to normal again. But if somebody continue drinking daily without stopping, then liver doesn't have time to recover completely. And then ongoing process creates the chronic liver failure or alcoholic liver disease. But people who are so-called binge drinkers, they usually don't get those liver disease, long-standing liver disease.
Okay. So do you know what his alcohol level was when he was admitted to the hospital?
No, sir. I was not provided that information. Only information I was provided that he was, quote-unquote, highly intoxicated at the time.
All right. And If I told you it was 355 milliliters, would that make any sense to you?
If it is,
Judge, just, I don't have a problem with the question, except I believe the measure was milligrams per deciliter.
Okay,
It was.
all right.
if it was done on a whole blood, that is normal, we understand. But if it is done by the hospital on a serum, then you have to reduce about 20% to make it a whole blood.
Okay. So unless you look at it, you really don't know what's there.
No, I do not know what part they analyze. In a hospital, mostly they analyze the serum, which is a clear part of the blood. In normal practice, like we do and the state police does, is the whole blood. So the whole blood is usually about 20% less than the serum level.
Now, let's talk about the hypertensive heart disease. What all is that?
Well, it is the blood pressure, which normally is systolic about 120, diastolic about 80. So 120 over 80 is a normal reading. Anybody who has a higher than that, those numbers are called hypertension. Usually 130 to 140 range is called the upper limit. As we grow older, that limit go up higher and higher. Like people like me who is close to 70, my systolic pressure usually is around 150, 160, which is normal. It's not hypertension. But diastolic remains the constant one. If it's 80, between 80 and 90, they call it borderline. Anything above the 90, irrespective of age, is hypertension. So that increased pressure makes the extra strain on the heart, and that's why we call it hypertensive chronic disease, because the heart cannot pump properly.
All right. Now, based on the heart you saw in this case, is that something that had just occurred, or is it something that dragged out and had been going on for a significant amount of time?
It has been going on since a long time, because otherwise I would not see the changes in the heart at the autopsy if it came within a short period of time.
So this has been going on for years.
Correct.
Okay. Now, do you remember taking a look at all at the intake records at Genesis Hospital?
As far as my old memory is, yes, I would say yes, but specifically if you ask me something number-wise, that what was that, I cannot answer that.
Okay. And that, it's been a year and a half. It's been a while. All right. Kidney disease. You indicated there were some issues with the kidneys.
Yes, again, that same hypertension creates a damage on the kidney. Well, medical theory is that either kidney start creating problem first and that causes the hypertension, or hypertension is first and then causes the kidney disease. We, as a medical field, we do not understand exactly which comes first, but they are very closely related to each other. One doesn't go without the other one.
Okay. And so they're related, correct?
Yes,
And to the best of your knowledge, that had probably been going on for years too?
yes.
Okay. Now, do you know if he was on dialysis when they brought him in?
That part I do not know, sir.
But he, at some point, was on dialysis, correct?
Yes.
Now, if they had brought him home from hospice and not put him on dialysis, would that contribute to his death?
That would be, yes, if it, like I say, without proper functioning of kidney, we cannot excrete all the metabolic chemical product from the body. And that building up metabolic product would create the complications, like you already had other complication, it add-on complication, I should say. Yes.
Okay. So that's a complication, and that would be part of it as well, right?
Yes.
So, if you went home on hospice, what is hospice? Do you know?
Hospice is somebody sent home and say, okay, somebody gonna die within short time, so keeping that person in the hospital is not worthwhile, both ways. So they are sent home and for the home care only, and somebody, either practitioner, nurse practitioner or somebody, visit them almost daily or every other day and check on them. So that much I know about hospice.
Yeah. And the goal is to kind of keep them comfortable and let them.
Correct.
And again, if they don't get the dialysis, that's going to contribute to it as well, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, other physical injuries, I understand his legs were amputated. Did you take a look at his hands?
Yeah, his, let me check. I think his left hand had the finger which were not looking good, particularly the left hand. So the end part of those left hand fingers, from the little finger up to the index finger, they were kind of short and the nails were getting darker.
Okay. Now, you didn't do any tests on this chemical, did you?
No, I cannot, like I say, it was, time-wise, it was not possible for me to do anything.
All right. And you obviously didn't interview Mr. Imirowicz.
No.
You rely on whatever information is in the police report, correct?
Yes, sir.
And if that information is hearsay and based on everything else, you still get to rely on it, right?
Yeah, that is accepted for me as a forensic pathologist. I have to rely on a lot of other department information.
All right. So you go with that information no matter what people have testified to when it comes out, correct?
Correct.
Now, you'd indicated there was some issue with the lungs.
Well, his lungs were heavy, loaded with the fluid, and also there was a scarring on surface of both lungs, which, as a pathologist, tells me that he had on and off infection in the lungs, which were then treated with the antibiotic and healed, and during the healing process, the scarring formation happened. So that's what I saw, and that's the process of the lung problem.
All right, so do you know when the lungs were damaged?
Again, only thing I can say is it's a long, many weeks, maybe months injury. It's not like a 1 or 2 days old injury. So that is the best I can tell you, sir.
Okay, so it could have been a long time ago, but it's been working on it over time.
Yes.
So, had he been healthy without the lungs, kidney, and liver, well, because liver was okay, lungs and kidney, would he have survived?
If, like I said, that if he did not develop this complication, terminal end complications, yeah, he would have survived. Nobody can tell how long, but he would have survived.
Sure. I mean, he could have had a heart attack possibly at any point in time.
It could happen to anybody, anytime. So,
But he had some extra stuff going on. His heart and his kidneys weren't in good shape, right?
yeah, it was to begin with before the injury, but that does not really prevent us to say that the injury and complication caused him death.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Nothing further.
Mr. Sands?
Thank you, Judge. So, Dr. Virani, I want to ask a couple questions. The first thing is, you talked about the nails on his left hand getting darker. What was that indicating to you?
Means, again, the circulation in that hand was not going properly, and that's why many a time the nails are the first one to show little bluish discoloration. That indicates that the circulation in the arm was not proper.
Okay. I want to make sure I understand properly. The hypertensive heart disease and the kidney damage, those things go together, you said.
Yes.
And those were things that existed for some time before the actual incident with the burns.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us how long that had been there?
No.
Okay.
I cannot. Again, the effect on the kidneys and the heart I observed at the time of autopsy tells me that it is a long-term process. He has hypertension months and months, sometimes years. Otherwise, he would not demonstrate those physical, visible abnormalities in the heart and kidneys.
But up to the point that he had been burned, those conditions had not caused his death.
No, it might have little add-on effect on it because it's pre-existing condition. But in forensic pathology, pre-existing disease, in spite of having pre-existing disease, the injury take the precedent, and the cause and manner of death are classified according to the final injury.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the infections in the lungs, the scarrings in the lungs, you said. Do you know if the scarring, what was the cause of the scarring to your determination?
Again, it's infection. Anywhere there is an infection, when it heals, if you have a cut in the skin, it will make a visible scar. But inside, you see the scar, which is, we call it adhesions, means the surface of the lung is supposed to be smooth and floating in the chest cavity, and there should be a vacuum between the chest wall and the surface of the lung, so the lung can collapse, expand, and again breathe in and breathe out. In his case, the lungs were stuck with the inside of the wall on both sides. It's a scarring. It is called adhesions, means the surface to surface stuck together. Only way it happens when somebody has on and off infection and healing, that thin lining on the surface, on the chest wall and the lung stick together and start forming the scar.
So the only way that can happen is from repeated infections.
Repeated infection, yes.
This is not something that can occur from some sort of single one-time acute incident.
No, sir.
Okay. I want to ask you a little bit about relying on the reports you're given. You indicated you have to rely sometimes on reports from other agencies, correct?
Yes, that is part of our statute, medical examiner statute.
And that went into your determination of the manner of death, correct?
Yes.
Does it go into your determination of cause of death?
Cause of death, mostly what I observe during the autopsy. Very rarely, I can count on my one hand finger that cases that I totally had to rely on information to find the cause of death. Because then physically and physiologically, I don't have any visible injury on the body, visible disease process in the body. Just the example I'll give you is that if somebody's old person sleeping and somebody put the soft pillow on the face and keep little pressure, person stop breathing, person dies. You don't see any injury whatsoever related to that part. But the information is documented somewhere that this is how it happened. I call it a suffocation or asphyxia as a cause of death, which is totally relying on information. But that is very rarely happen. In this case, I saw the visible injury, I saw the congestive heart failure, I saw the complications inside of the body. So that cause of death is there. But manner, of course, I have to rely on information.
And so in determining manner of death, would it be fair to say that you can take comparisons? See if the information you're given from outside matches your physical examinations, and if those things go together, you can declare it a homicide.
Correct.
Is that what happened in this case?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't have anything else.
Just briefly. Doctor, you don't know how long that chemical was on the body when it was burned, do you?
From the information was what day the chemical was thrown, and that's only how long I can tell you. But how long it stayed on the body before some hospital people cleaned it up, I do not know that.
All right. And you rely on whatever those reports say to make your determination, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, do you have any questions? No. Thank you, sir. Your excuse is a witness.
Thank you.
Judge, I have one more witness today. I'm going to check and see in the hallway if they're here.
Thank you.